Now here's the thing. Uh, most people don't want to run programs in a black and white screen like we've been doing, like on a terminal. I mean, if you have a program like that, probably no one will take you serious. So now we will build a finance tracker, but not as a terminal program. We will build it as a simple but powerful web application, right? So this means we'll have a program that runs on your computer, but you interact it with it through a web browser like Chrome or Firefox or Edge. It will have a real user interface with text boxes, buttons, table to display finances, and anyone on your home network could even potentially use it from their own device. To do this, we need to introduce one final exciting piece to the puzzle, a web framework. Now, the bridge between Python and the web is what we call Flask. So think of it like this. Your Python code is the engine and the brain. It knows how to calculate, how to save data to a CSV file, how to manage your list of transactions. So this is back end. All right, this is back end. This is what we call back end. And then an HTML file is a user interface. It defines the buttons, the forms, the text that the user sees in their browser. So this is called front end. You see now the difference between back end and front end language, right? So how do we connect them? We need a manager that can take the user's button click from the web page, send the information to the right Python function, get the result, and then display it back to the page. So that manager is a web framework called Flask. So Flask is a wonderfully simple and powerful micro framework. So it's perfect for beginners because it lets us build a web application using the Python skills that we've already have with just few concepts. So now on our personal finance tracker project, we'll have a couple of lessons on building our first web applications. So we will cover what is web framework, front end versus a back end, and then installing Flask, and then we'll also rewrite a simple 5-line Python script that uses Flask to show maybe something, a line in the web browser. All right, so that's what we're actually going to do now. Today, since it's Monday, the 20th of October, we're about to embark on the most exciting part of our journey. We're going to take the final step, the one that turns our programmer script into the user's application. We're going to build a web application. So forget the black and white terminal. We've been talking about something. We are talking about something that you open on Google, Chrome, or Edge, and then with a real user interface, and then the tool that will be our bridge between our Python logic and the web browser is the fantastic framework called Flask. All right. Now let's go ahead and make a directory here. I'm gonna call it web apps, and then and then let's cd to web apps. Now let's revisit our restaurant analogy because it's perfect here. All right, so the kitchen is our Python code. It has all the logic. It has the recipe for processing data like calculating finance, saving to file, etc. So this is back end. And then the dining room is the web page the user sees, definitely by HTML. So this is a front end. So Flask is the waiter. The user sitting in the dining room makes a request, clicks a button, the Flask waiter takes the request, brings it to the kitchen, which is our Python functions, gets the results, the data, or a finished web page, and delivers it back to the user's table, meaning their browser. So the Flask's job is to listen for requests from the web browser and connect them to the right Python function. So now, just like the request library that we did before, Flask is a third-party package. So our first step is to install it. So you're going to open your terminal and then run this command, pip install user Flask. So once we've installed this, let's go ahead and create a file. So we're gonna create a file, app.py. Sorry, I must actually say new item. And then app.py. And then I'm gonna open that file, which is app.py. Now, so we can say from Flask import Flask, and then we must create an instance of the Flask application. Let's just call this hello world. I normally don't like using hello world, but let's just do that. And then here we're gonna return all right. Now let's break it down. From Flask, import Flask, we import the main Flask class from the library, and then the second line here, this line, we create our actual web application. So the underscore name is just a special Python variable that Flask needs to set things up correctly. So you can think of it, this line, as a turn this file into a web app. Okay, and then at app root, this is called a decorator or a root. All right. So this is the most important part. It's a signpost. It tells Flask, hey, if everyone visits the main home page of the web page, then you must run the function that is written directly below this line. And then the hello world function is a function that will run when someone visits the home page. And then return, instead of just writing a value, we return a string of simple HTML. So this is what the user's browser will actually display. So the H1 tag means heading 1. Okay, so this will show as a heading. To run the web server, this is different from running a normal Python script. Remember, we always say Python and then the name of the file. Flask comes with its own mini web server for development. First, we need to tell the terminal where our app is. Okay, so in the terminal, we're gonna just say, we're gonna type something like export and then Flask app, which is app.py. Oh no, we're using PowerShell. So in PowerShell, we must actually do it like this. We must create a PowerShell variable. Let's call it nv, and then we can just call it a Flask app, and then which is gonna be app.py. All right, and then once we're done with that, then we can just say Flask run. So instead, what we can do, we can try doing, I think it's the same problem that we're having with the user. So we can try to Python and then we can just say Flask run. It's the same problem that we had before. Now this is gonna give you an address like that. You can see it's giving you should see some text appearing that this is running on this address. Okay, the address of 127.0.0.0.1 and then on port 5000. So this is a special address. That means that your own computer it's also called localhost. Now we can just follow this URL by pressing Control and then just click. So this will open a browser, and then we're gonna see the same message that we actually wrote there. So now Python script is running as a live web server on the computer. It's just served a web page to your browser. So this is a massive achievement that we've done. Now that we have accomplished this, something truly amazing, we've turned a Python script into a live web server using Flask and served our very first web page. So you've seen now the magic of code controlling what happens in, a code that is controlling what happens in the web browser. Now, but let's be honest, a simple line of text is not very attractive. Right? Our goal is to build a finance tracker. We need a way for a user to give us information, to type in their transaction and send them to Python code. To do that, we need to build the front end, meaning the dining room of our application, and the language that we use to build that is going to be HTML. Now, talking about HTML, first, what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext Markup Language. It's not a programming language like Python. It has no logic, there's no loops, there's no variables. So its only job is to structure content. It's a skeleton that gives web pages its shape. So we use things called tags to tell the browser what kind of content it's looking at. For example, the P tag tells the browser this is a paragraph. The H1 tag that we used here tells the browser that this is the main heading, right? So last time we actually turned the HTML as a simple string of Python functions. So that's fine on this hello from the first web app. But for a real page, it's incredibly messy. So the professional way is to keep our Python code and HTML code separate. So it must be separate files. So Flask has a rule for this. It expects you to keep all your HTML files in a special folder. So we'll have to create a file called templates folder. So let's do that. We'll have to create. So I'm gonna stop my web server, Control-C, to stop it from running. And then now I'm still within web apps. And then I'm gonna make a file called templates. I'm gonna make a directory rather called templates. Now let's create an actual HTML for our finance tracker as form input. So inside the new templates folder, we're going to create another file called named index.html. So I'm going to make a file within templates, and this file is called index.html. And then in this file, we will just create a structure. Now to create a structure, we can just use VS Code shortcut, which is you put an exclamation and then you press tab. So exclamation and then you press tab. So this is going to create an HTML structure for you. And then we're going to give it a title. The title is personal finance tracker. personal tracker. Now, and then on the body, we're gonna have h1 again. So remember, h1 is for the headings, the main headings. Add a new transaction, and then we're gonna create a form. The form is just gonna go to a function called add, and then we must also add a method on the form of post. We're gonna have description, and then we're gonna have input, so the name is description. You can keep the ID the same, description, and then it's required. Alright, so because we don't have time to actually do the CSS, we're gonna use the line breaks. So we've got the second label, which is it's for an amount, and then we're gonna have an input, but this input is a type of a number, and it has the name of amount and the ID of amount, and then we can put a step, and it's also required. And then finally we'll just have the button, so input, it is type of submit, a value add transaction. Alright, so let me just break down this. The body on the HTML, this is where all visible contents of your page goes. H1 is a big top level heading, and then form, this is a container of your input fields. Alright, this is the part that will send data on our Python code, and then action is add. This tells the form where to send the data when submitted. It will send it to the end URL of our web page. So we'll build this route in Python next time. And then post, method is post. This just means that we are sending data to the server. And then label is a text label for the input field, and then input is the most important tag. So this creates the actual field the user interacts with. And then the type is text. Within the input is a standard text box, and then type is number, is a box for numbers with a little drop down arrows, and then the type submit, this creates a submit button. And then name is, like for example, we say name is amount and name is description. This is critical. The name attribute is the label that Flask is going to use to actually identify the data, where the user types maybe groceries, and then Flask will know it came from an input field with a name description. Now okay, so now we have a beautiful HTML form. How do we tell Flask to send this file to the user instead of the simple string? So we use a special function from Flask called render template. Now we're gonna go back to app.py, and then we don't need this anymore. So here I'm just gonna say from Flask. Okay, I think what we can do, we can just say comma render template. Okay, And then here we can create a new method, and then we call it index instead of hello world. And then we're gonna just say return render template, and then which is index. I think I wrote it with an uppercase. It was supposed to be lowercase, but it's fine. .html. So that's it. When the user visits now our homepage, Flask will find the index, read all the contents, and then send it to the user's browser. So now, if we go and run this once more, and then follow the URL, now I have a nice former magic. Because I like beautiful things, I think we will apply CSS. I don't like creating an app like this. So like we will say groceries. Let's say groceries. We spend let's say 500 or 5,000. Then we've got a nice button here. We click, and then that will add it to the transaction.